Apple's new iPhones are here. I've dropped a review, I've dropped the unboxing, and I've been monitoring your comments and questions. And in this video, I'm gonna tell you the answers to what I've been seeing. So this is iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro, what Apple didn't tell you. Let's do it. What's going on, Tech Squad? Andrew Edwards here, and as I mentioned today, we're talking about the things Apple didn't tell you about the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro, or some things that they did tell you that a lot of people didn't realize that they told you. In case you missed it, I did drop my iPhone 13 Pro review in particular. I'll drop a link to that one down below, but be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future content as we cover everything about these new devices. All right, let's jump in with the first one, and that is that ProRes video recording will be up to 4K 30 frames per second unless you buy the 128 gigabyte model iPhone 13 Pro, which then locks it to 1080p 30 frames per second. Now, this is likely due to the huge file sizes that ProRes video recording will produce on the iPhone. For example, 1 minute of 4K ProRes footage uses 6 gigabytes of storage space. So a 128 gigabyte iPhone 13 Pro will be able to hold less than 20 minutes of ProRes video footage, and that's if the phone had no other data on it other than the iOS operating system itself. So if you plan on using ProRes video recording, which hasn't been released yet but will be released in a software update coming soon, you will want an iPhone 13 Pro with a minimum of 256 gigabytes of storage space if you want to go 4K. Up next, let's talk about cinematic video. Cinematic video is capped at 1080p at 30 frames per second. In fact, it's not even capped, that's just what it is. It's locked at 1080p, 30 frames per second. So one of the coolest features on the iPhone 13 is cinematic mode. This allows users to record videos with a shallow depth of field and also allows you to change the focal point and the amount of depth of field after the video's already been recorded, which is incredible. The problem is that you can only record at 1080p 30 frames per second, although you're able to use this mode with the main sensor and the true depth camera. Now, in my testing over the past week and a half, I was way more impressed with cinematic mode than I thought I would be, especially recording with the front camera, which is just a whole new selfie video experience. But that said, if cinematic to you means 24 frames per second, cinematic mode doesn't support that, or at least not yet. Let's hope it does in the future. Up next, dual eSIM support. Apple says that the iPhone 13 models support dual SIM using regular SIM and eSIM, and dual eSIM, as the company calls it. With that, users will be able to set 2 different carriers using eSIM with no problem without the need for any physical SIM cards. You still have the standard dual SIM option as well, which is a physical nano SIM plus the internal eSIM. This will be great for anyone who needs 2 phone numbers on their iPhone, especially if you're traveling. Use one eSIM for your main number and then add a temporary second eSIM to get data wherever you are without breaking the bank and without needing a SIM card ejector removal tool. Next, the notch cutout for the true depth camera is 20% smaller in width, which Apple did tell us, but it is ever so slightly taller than on previous devices. Overall, there's still much less overall notch volume, and anyone who had a problem with it, I assume, will find this version to be much more tolerable. I personally have never had a problem with the notch at the top of the display at all, and appreciate the entire true depth camera system and the security that Face ID provides. You may not know this, but this is basically a super shrunken down Microsoft Connect right at the top of the iPhone's display. Now, before we get to the next point, I want to give a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Incipio. Their line of Optum protective cases for the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro are optimizing for the next generation. A lot of cases out there protect your phone from drops, but they make your phone run hot and can even affect your cell signal. Incipio Optum cases have built-in air vents to promote airflow and a heat-absorbing layer to keep your iPhone 13 cool. And the case is optimized for the best 5G performance possible. They've also got ultra-responsive press-fit buttons, and good buttons are a must for any case I put on my phones. And they support both wireless and MagSafe charging, thanks to the slim 2.5mm profile. They also make the dual and grip line of cases, as well as Organic-Core Clear, the world's first fully compostable clear co-molded case. If you want to pick up an Incipio Optum case for your iPhone 13, check the link in the description below. And once again, big thank you to Incipio for sponsoring this video. Up next, iPhone 13 Pro has a more powerful GPU than iPhone 13. This is a first in the entire history of the iPhone. Now, Apple did give us this info, but didn't make it clear with a comparison. But the iPhone 13 has an A15 chip with 4 GPU cores. However, for the first time, the Pro iPhones have a more powerful GPU. The iPhone 13 Pro has 5 cores, giving it 25% more graphics power when compared to the standard iPhone 13. Now, I assume this assists with a few things that the iPhone 13 Pro has, namely the new ProMotion display with adaptive refresh rate and ProRes video recording, but it'll also help for gaming and other graphically intensive apps. Up next, the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro have the same amount of RAM as the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro. This means that the iPhone 13 and 13 mini have 4 GB of RAM, while the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max have 6 GB of RAM. So if you were curious about RAM, now you know. Up next, there is no battery percentage in the status bar despite the true depth camera system being 20% smaller, as we've already discussed. You'll still need to swipe down from the top right if you want to see the battery percentage. I got a lot of questions about this, so I figured I'd just address that one quickly. Next up, iPhone 13 devices are heavier than iPhone 12. I know so many people that think Apple is obsessed with making everything lighter and thinner, but the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro don't fit that narrative, and actually the 12 and 12 Pro didn't either when compared to the 11. The iPhone 13 mini, 13, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max are all heavier than their iPhone 12 counterparts. The mini is 6 grams heavier, the standard 13 is 10 grams, the 13 Pro weighs 15 grams more, and the 13 Pro Max is 12 grams heavier than the 12 Pro Max. They're also ever so slightly thicker, 0.25 millimeters thicker to be exact. Up next, AppleCare Plus now covers cracked rear glass on iPhone 12 and 13 for $29. And this is a nice change. So prior to the announcement of the iPhone 13, if you broke the rear glass on your iPhone, it would cost $99 to fix with AppleCare. Apple has now dropped that cost by 70% down to $29 for the same repair. So please, I beg you, if you drop and crack your phone, just get it fixed rather than running around for 8 months with it getting worse and worse over time. I see you guys out there with these cracked screens and glass. I see you. Next, iPhone 13 mini is limited to 12 watts MagSafe charging speeds. This is similar to last year, but I don't think many people realize it. While the iPhone 13, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max will charge at 15 watts when attached to a MagSafe charger, the iPhone 13 mini actually charges at a slower rate of 12 watts. Now, the mini also has a smaller battery, which means charging time isn't actually that different from the others, but the rate is definitely slower. Lastly, if you were waiting for the iPhone 13 to drop so you could get a previous gen iPhone at a cheaper price, you should know that Apple has discontinued the iPhone 12 Pro completely. They're no longer making these, and they've also discontinued the 256 gigabyte iPhone SE. So if you want a brand new Pro iPhone, Apple only sells the iPhone 13 Pro. So look to other retailers before they go out of stock for good. So there it is. Those are the things about the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro that you may not know because Apple didn't specifically tell you about them. Any questions you have or anything I missed, drop them in the comments below and I will meet you there for further discussion. Thanks for watching as always, guys. I appreciate your support. I'm Andrew Edwards and I will catch you in the next video.